Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn how to deploy microservices on cloud infrastructure without knowing too much about infrastructure related details. Before I jump to the actual topic, let's first understand what exactly is Amazon Elastic Container Service. Amazon Elastic Container Service, also known as ECS, is a fully managed container option service which lets you deploy your microservices on container and scale it and scale out as per your requirement. It's very similar to the Kubernetes, but this is a Amazon offering. It's integrated with most of the services offered by Amazon. To deploy anything on ECS, if you're going and directly deploying it, you need to have a proper understanding of how to go and log into the console and all the details of the ECS, like services deployment and the task deployment. I'll talk about little bit on these details, but what exactly I'm going to cover is how you can deploy your services, microservices on ECS without even knowing about ECS. Okay, let's first understand the terminology used in the ECS. So basically there's three main terms used in ECS. Is one is a task definition. Task definition is that it is kind of manifest, where you say that, okay, if I'm going to deploy my task, how that is going to look like. So what are the Docker, I'm going to use in that particular task. Task is very similar to a pod, which we have learned in Kubernetes. So basically it contains a container, right? So for example, say if you want to deploy a micro, you need to deploy that in a task. Then you can scale in and scale out your task as per requirement. So basically task definition is a manifest file using which you can deploy your task. Then what is a service? So service lets you manage your task, right? So task itself cannot go and scale out and scale in as per requirement. So you need to expose that task as a service. Service takes care of scalability of your task and load balance your all the calls which is coming to that service. So for example, if there are 4 tasks deployed for one microservice, so basically all 4 tasks will be exposed via a service, and call will be consumed by service, and service will load balance that call across 4 tasks. All right, if you see the diagram, just for understanding purpose, how ECS works. So basically, if you have seen my Kubernetes video, you will be able to relate it. If you haven't seen that, just don't worry, I'll explain you. So basically you need to store your Docker image in a repository. It could be ECR, it could be a Docker hub, and then using this repository you will pull the image and then deploy it in the ECS. So basically if you see that this part, you need to define your application. So basically when I'm saying you need to define your application, basically you will be writing your task definition, and using the task definition you will be deploying your task and services. There are 2 mechanisms you can deploy it. Either you can go and build the EC2 machine, that is your VM, and deploy it, and second model is known as a AWS Fargate, which is a serverless model. So in the serverless model, you need not to worry about scaling out and scaling in your infrastructure. You can simply rely on AWS, which will take care of those stuff. All right, so let's get this started. So what I'm going to cover today is Copilot. AWS Copilot is a CLI for ECS, but it is a bit different. The CLI for AWS ECS is there for since 2015, but as a normal CLI, initial CLI was supposed to do what exactly you can do through the console. Log into the console, creating the task definition, then running the task, then creating the service. Basically you were interacting with infrastructure. Either you are doing with a CLI or you are doing with deployment using the console. But in 2019 end and beginning of the 2020, AWS decided to change the design of this CLI, and it is renamed as a Copilot. What exactly it does is that it is not a simple CLI. It simply abstract the complete infrastructure complexity and let you simply go and deploy your application. So when I'll go and start showing the demo, you will be able to understand what exactly this means. So basically you will not know that you are interacting with ECS or you are interacting with some other orchestration service. You just need to go and focus on your application as a developer, and basically you will be deploying your services, and then you will be scaling up and scaling out. So if you are a developer and you don't want to focus on infrastructure, rather than you want to focus on application and want to deploy your microservices in easy way, Copilot is a CLI for you. So let's first understand how to set up the AWS CLI. That is the core requirement before setting up the Copilot, because you are anyway going to interact with the AWS infrastructure. So AWS CLI need to be set up first. So if you see that there's a link given here, I'll give this link in the description window as well, so that you can go and download it. Otherwise you can on Google search for the AWS CLI version 2 and go and deploy it. And then once this CLI is deployed, you need to configure it. So let's first see if AWS CLI is deployed. You need to fire a command AWS version. So it is deployed, right? Now you need to set up as I mentioned. So once this is deployed, you need to provide your credential using which your console will interact with your infrastructure. So to configure it, you need to give a command AWS configure, and then it will ask you for the access key. You need to give a proper access to your access key, which you will be generating through IAM policies. And then you need to give the region name where you want to deploy your application, and the format. If you give none, it will be always JSON. So this setup need to be done. I have already set up. Make sure that the credential which you are using have a proper access to the ECS infrastructure, otherwise it will fail. Okay. Once this is done, you need to deploy Copilot CLI. It's pretty simple and straightforward. The link is given over here. I'll give this in a description window as well, so that you can go and understand. So if you come here, this is the details given for the installation of the CLI, AWS CLI, and this is for the Copilot. So just go and fire this command. If this doesn't work, you need to provide the sudo for the permission. So you may start with the sudo curl, right? This will work. So sometime even I have faced this issue where I need to go and run this separately from here to here through sudo curl. Then I need to give access right using chmod plus x on the folder, and then it started working. So you need to verify if this works. You need to just go and execute the command Copilot help. So this will give you all details. All right. So what exactly Copilot does for you? So Copilot primarily let you deploy your application microservices on ECS Fargate. When you deploy application through Copilot, though you will not see the infrastructure related details, by default the application deployed through Copilot will be deployed on ECS Fargate. That's the one thing. Second thing, you can scale in and scale out your services as per your requirement. Once deployment is done, you can go and modify it. And third most important thing it does is that it let you manage the release. That is a CI/CD pipeline can also be built using the AWS code pipeline without going in the complexity. Today I'm going to cover the first two parts wherein we'll be deploying the application and then we'll scale in and scale out. All right. So let's first talk about the which application we are going to deploy. I have given the link in the description window of the sample application, which is available in the GitHub. Where is that? Yeah, this one. So you need to just clone it. Let me just clone it first for you, and then I'll explain you what these microservices are. So to clone, you need to have Git already deployed, Git clone, and the URL. So basically it's giving exception because I have already cloned it and now folder is there, but this is the mechanism you will be cloning it, right? So let me directly go in my folder. So see, there's a two microservices. If you have seen my earlier video, this is the same example I have taken here. So first microservices order, which is exposed on port 80, and this application is written using the node.js, And second microservices is inventory, which is consumed by order microservice, and this is also written using the Node.js exposed on port 8081. Okay. Orders microservices is returning some statement like order processing, and inventory is returning some message. So it's a pretty simple microservices without any database. If you want a complex system, you can go and build it and deploy it. Make sure that the application is Dockerized already. I'm not going to cover Docker. If you want to learn Docker, see my first series, which is microservices deployment using Kubernetes, part 1, where I have covered the Docker. So let me show you applications are. All right. So this is the index.js. This is pretty simple application. If you see that, I'm doing nothing. Simply I'm printing some statement that order received, and then I'm printing the message written by inventory service. Inventory service is consumed through this one. The URL which I have given is important, right? So I'll explain you in some time what exactly and how this name is coming, right? Inventory, SVC, ecom system, and local. So I'll explain you sometime. There's a mechanism using which you can define the URL before even deploying. All right, and this is the Docker file which I have created. All right, so let's start deploying this through Copilot. So first you need to initiate your application, right? So the mechanism in the Copilot is that you need not to go and talk about ECS or anything else. You will simply start Copilot that I want to deploy my application. What is the first microservice I want to deploy along with my application? And then you can go and add your multiple microservices as per requirement. To create the first application and the service along with that, we need to execute this command, right? Copilot init -a, the name of your application, which is ecom-system, -s, the name of your service. I've given the name as inventory -svc. -d is the name of your Docker file and the path of the Docker file. If you see, I'm executing this command from Copilot folder, and inside Copilot folder, we have seen that there is a inventory folder and there is a order folder, and inside the inventory there is a Docker file for that. I'm deploying inventory first because that is a backend service. -t says that which kind of service this is. So there's a two option available. One is you can go with the backend service, and second option is that you can go with the load balancer. So load balancer service is something which you are exposing publicly, right? And that is load balance. So the service which you want to expose publicly need to be type of load balancer. Inventory service is going to be backend service because this will be consumed by order service. So the complete name is backend service. So let me execute the command. So it's creating, right? So it will go step by step, and what exactly this does for your understanding, if you want to understand the infrastructure, let me just explain you. So it will first create a cluster, ECS cluster, and then it will create a task definition of inventory service type. Then it will create a task of inventory service. Then it will create a service type itself. Also it will create a repository, that is a Docker image repository in ECR, and fetch the image from there and deploy it. So it is asking for, would you like to deploy a test environment? So here you have a choice, right? What environment you want to go and deploy it. I'm going to deploy this in a test environment. So I'm going to say yes. And it will start creating the environment, all together. So let me pause here and I'll come back, once deployment is done. It is going to take some time. Okay, so this application and service is deployed. It took almost 15 minutes, but finally the deployment is done. So what it has done is that it has created a cluster and then pushed my image to ECR, that is a AWS registry, and from there it has taken the image and then deployed that as a task, and then build a service on top of that. So if I need to see list of my application which I have built, this is the first application I'm building, but there may be possibility that I have built multiple applications. How would I see the listing of those applications? So the command is very simple. So command for same is Copilot app ls. Now you can see the name of application is ecom system, which we have given. If you need to list your service, the command is Copilot svc. So the pattern you need to understand. So all the commands related to applications are starting with Copilot app, and all the commands related to service will start with Copilot svc. So again ls. So this is a service. Now one thing you need to understand, right, how exactly we are going to consume this inventory service, because this is a backend service. You cannot publicly go and consume from local system. So the mechanism is using the service discovery. So service discovery is private in nature. You cannot directly access from your local system. So the order service, when it gets deployed in the same space, since both are part of the same ECS cluster, my order service will be able to call this service through service discovery. And what is the name of service discovery? If you see the deployment, when this is done, it is shown the name of the service inventory svc dot ecom system dot local dot 8081. So the pattern is pretty simple. This is your service name dot, this is your application name dot local, then port number. So if you remember, when I was showing you the application of order, I have already given this name because I was very clear that what exactly my application name is going to be and what my service name is going to be. So using this, you can easily go and create your service discovery name for all the services which are backend in nature. But still, if you miss this name, if you want to see it, the command is Copilot svc show -n, that is -n, and your service name. It will give you all details about the service which is already deployed. See, so you can find all the details. What is the CPU and memory is allocated. If you want, it can be changed as well at later point of time. And this is the service discovery name. You can take it from here, right? Let me just go to the order service and show you again. So if you see, I have given exactly the same name here. All right. So let's deploy the order service. I again came back to my Copilot root directory, and from here I will be deploying my order service because I need to give the path of my Docker file. So command is Copilot svc. As as I mentioned that all the commands for the services starting with Copilot svc, then init -n, the name of service. Now I'm going to give the name, service name is order svc because I'm going to deploy the order service. -t, the type of the service. Now this is going to be load balanced web service. This term need to be used exactly the same way. And -d, the path of the Docker file, which is inside the Docker folder. Let me execute this command. So command is executed, but this is not going to deploy the service using this command. This is actually just initialization process. It will keep all the required details with us, and then to deploy it, you need to execute a separate command, which is deploy command. If you see here, it is given there, Copilot svc deploy name of service and then environment name. So let's copy this and execute this. Now this will deploy the service. So it is again going to take some time. So let me pause here and come back once deployment is done. So this deployment is done. It took around 5 to 6 minutes for me. And you see that once deployment is done, it is giving you a URL using which you can access it publicly, right? So you can take a note of this, or even if you have just forgot taking a note, you can run the same command, Copilot svc ls. So now there's two services available, Copilot svc show -n, then the service name. it will give you all information along with the URL, right? Let's try to access this. Yeah, it's working. So see, when I'm executing this, it is calling me order service. So this message is coming from order service and this message is coming from inventory service. So it means the service discovery name which we have used is working perfectly okay, and my application is deployed. So this is the simplest way, right? Rather than going and deploying that and understanding infrastructure before deploying anything. If you're using the Copilot and you're a developer, you need not to worry about the infrastructure. You just go and use the Copilot, create your application, add your services as and when required, and your application is up and running. All right, let me show you a couple of more things. So what we have done so far, we have created an application and deployed our backend service, that was inventory service. Then we have added one more service, which is a publicly exposed order service, and we are calling that service, and it's perfectly working. Now if I list down, right, my folder. Now see, initially there were two folders only. One is inventory folder and one is the order folder, where my application is, I've kept my application. Now when you deploy any service using Copilot, it creates a folder with the service name. Let's go inside one folder, order SVC. Now see, the Copilot creates a manifest.yaml file for your service. The purpose of this file is that once deployment is done, if you want to make any changes in any of the deployment setting, like if you want to scale out your service from 1 to 2, 2 to 10, you can go and change this manifest file. This is self-explanatory. Let me open this for the order service. Now see, all related information with the service is available here. Image, path, CPU and memory allocation, you can change it, but you need to understand what are the valid CPU and memory for forget. You can go on the website and understand this. Let me change the count here, right? This is the simplest way. So for example, say if it is, I'm going to change from 1 to 2 and I'll save it, right? So this is saved. Now how this is going to be applicable? It's pretty simple. Just go to the root folder from where your deployment is done and again execute the same deploy command. This one. This will redeploy everything for you. And this time it is going to be faster because most of the layer of the Docker is going to be there. If you understand Docker, you must be understanding what layer is all about. So it should not take more than 1 or 2 minutes this time. From front-end point of view, when you will call service, you will not see much difference, but I'll walk you through the backend part as well. I'll walk you through the infrastructure, what is created through console, and you'll be able to see 2 instances of, this order service will be up and running because we have done changes in the manifest file. Let me pause here and then come back. So deployment is done. The URL is available. You can go and access it. It is going to work exactly the same way. All right. So now what else you can do? So as I mentioned, we have done the deployment. We are able to scale it and scale out. The third part of this is, setting the CI/CD pipeline, which I'm not going to cover at this moment. I'll be, creating a separate video for that. But once application is deployed, if you need to delete any service, how would you do that? Command is very simple. Copilot SVC, delete -n service name and the environment name. Same way, you can delete your complete application as well. So rather than this, you will giving app, delete, that's it. Press enter and it will ask for the application name. I'm not going to delete you at this moment. The reason being, I want to show you through console what is actually deployed. Before that, let's just quickly summarize the commands. So initial application deployment, we executed this command, copilot init -a ecom system -s my service name and then my Docker file name and then the type of service. Then once this deployment is done, I added one more service using the Copilot SVC init order service and type is the load balancer. And one service is added, I deployed that using the Copilot svc deploy -n order svc -e environment name. And once this deployment is done, you can go and test your application because it will give you the endpoint, and if you forgot taking a note of the endpoint, you can simply run the command, Copilot svc show and -n and the service name, right? And even if you can go and change the, settings in the manifest file and go and redeploy using the same command. And once this is done, your application is up and running. If you want to delete it, the commands are given here. All right. So let's jump to the console. So this is my, management console. Let me go to the ECS service. I'll search for ECS, that is Elastic Container Service. If you see here, this is the name of my application, ecom system, and it has added, some more name here to make it unique. And if you see, the deployment is not done on the EC2 type, it is done on the Fargate type. 2 services are running and 3 tasks. Why 3 tasks? Because for one service, order service, there are 2 tasks running. So this is my service name, ecom system test inventory service and ecom system test order service. So naming convention it used to follow as per practices. From outside, when you see the Copilot, you will see the name which you have provided, but internally the name are little bit different. And these are the tasks running. And there is no ECS instance running here, right? So that's all for today, guys. If you have not subscribed my channel yet, please subscribe and press on bell icon so that you can get notified once new video is available. Thank you so much.